Hello again, fellow podcaster, and welcome back to Pod Theory. I'm your host, Jason Cercone, and today we're going to talk about 5 ways to generate leads with your podcast. A brand podcast has a ton of built-in value. Within your industry, you have the ability to connect with your audience on a medium that's gaining new listeners by the day. You also have the ability to establish authority and establish trust, two of the biggest components a brand needs to succeed. That authority will not only earn you respect with your listeners, but others in your industry as well. If you set the standard, they'll be looking for ways to emulate your practices across the board. You can also amplify your brand message across the globe, attracting loyalists on multiple levels. With more and more brands getting on the podcast train, you want to be sure your show does everything I just mentioned, plus one very important factor that will truly make your efforts worthwhile. You want to set your podcast up to generate leads. This is going to legitimize all of the effort you put into building your podcast, as well as help you grow and reach levels of sustainability that will open up the door for a multitude of possibilities in the future. In order for your podcast to generate leads, you need to be sure your episodes are set up accordingly. Here are 5 ways you can use your podcast to generate the leads you're looking for. Number 1, focus on problem-solving content. This one is big. When a listener stumbles upon a new podcast, in most cases, it won't be because they're looking for that specific podcast. It's because they're looking for a solution to a problem they're facing. For example, they may be looking to sharpen their skills on the stock market. This will lead them to visit their podcast app of choice and search for podcasts on this subject. And if this leads them to your podcast and you provide them with consistent content about how to invest properly, things to avoid, important knowledge that will help them invest smarter, boom, you just landed yourself a new listener. Or maybe they search Google for solutions and find your podcast that way. Either way, if your content delivers solutions, they'll stick around for all of your content, plus pick up that course you just launched about making smart investments, or connect with you directly to help them build their portfolio. The bottom line is this: no matter what product or service you offer, if your content is geared towards helping your listeners solve their problems, they'll have more reasons to do business with you because you took the time to establish trust. Number 2, provide opt-ins in your show notes. If you want to reach your audience in ways outside of your podcast, which is highly recommended, utilize the space available in your show notes to provide opt-in links. Whether you want your listeners to visit your website to set up a consultation, or sign up for your newsletter where you'll share additional info with them, or direct them anywhere that will help you take the next step into making them a customer, be sure to explain on your episodes how they can easily access further info by clicking the link in your show notes. The easier you make this process, the more results you'll see. Which leads to number 3. Use strong calls to action in each episode you produce. Podcast listeners are well known for responding to calls to actions that they hear on their favorite shows. So providing them with solid information on the front end will help you guide them towards the next step you want them to take. Try to limit yourself to as few calls to action in each episode as you can. The reason being, if you give a listener 9 things that you want them to do, they won't know which one is the most important, so they won't do any of them. Instead, decide which platform you want them to check out on any particular episode and focus your calls to action throughout said episode on that one platform. This stresses the importance you place on your listener gaining valuable info when they heed your advice and go to that platform, and it only gives them one task that they need to accomplish after finishing your show. Number 4, share your phone number. Whether it be your personal cell phone, your office phone, or a direct line to the front desk, don't miss an opportunity to capture a bit of old school advertising by giving your audience a call now option. Providing your phone number demonstrates how serious you are to connect with your audience and will allow you to get to that next step in the customer building process much faster. When your listeners do reach out to you, don't just go into sales mode. Take the time to build rapport and discover what they like about your show. Continue building the relationship you've already started with your podcast and get them further entrenched in the culture of your brand. Once you have a good rapport, then you can start to talk more about the products and services that you offer. And finally, number 5, use your content in other capacities. Now, if you've listened to past episodes of Pod Theory, you know I'm a big proponent of repurposing your podcast content for blog posts, email newsletters, social media posts, videos, webinars, you name it. This gives you the ability to max out the miles on one piece of content that you've constructed and reach current and potential customers on other mediums that they may frequent. Repurposing your content on other networks naturally extends your ability to generate leads too. Perhaps someone didn't catch your podcast but saw your social media post about the same subject and decided to take action. Or they saw your YouTube video. The more avenues you have to reach your audience and your potential customer base, the better. Work smart and use your content in as many capacities as you can. In order to get the most from your brand podcast, you want to be sure it's serving all the right purposes. If your show engages, connects, enhances your brand visibility, and helps you generate leads that turn into long-term customers, you are absolutely on the right track. Keep up the great work. And that's going to put a bow on episode 86 of Pod Theory. If you'd like to touch base with me and talk about today's show, I'm just a call or text away. Drop me a line at 412-965-8428. Good talk. I'll see you back here tomorrow. This has been Jason Cercone on Pod Theory.